we are going to dive right into my houseplant collection today. So here's a better look at 3 of my lovely snake plants. I wanted to give you this angle because these plants are pretty tall. If I stand up straight, I think my head is cut off a little bit in the viewfinder, but I wanted to show you how tall these snake plants are because I'm 5'4" and take a look at this leaf. I think this is the tallest leaf. It goes, I'd say just past my chin, so I'm not sure how tall that makes it, but it's a pretty darn tall snake plant. And I have no idea how tall snake plants get, but I'm really curious because I would say our ceilings on average are about 7 feet tall, but they do get taller in this part of the house. They go, I'm gonna say 12, maybe 15 feet tall in this area of our living room. So I'm really curious how tall my snake plants will get because they're not that much further from the ceiling just because they're growing pretty fast and I've only had them a few years. I'm really curious if they'll ever reach the ceiling. I will give you an update if that ever happens. Here is one of our windows, which really has absolutely no view. A lovely view of the neighbor's weeds. So what I have growing in this window is my one and only orchid plant. This orchid was a gift from a student that used to live with us. And I've had it for, I want to say almost 4 years, and it blooms most of the year. It's actually not blooming right now, but most of the year it has 1 or 2 flower stalks and blossoms on it. And I love, love, love orchids because it's one of the few flowers out of all flowers that I seem to have absolutely no allergic reaction to. So that makes it one of my favorite indoor flowers because 99.9% of flowers I would never bring into my house because I am so allergic to them. Beside my orchid plant, I have some air plants. I was inspired by the one and only Grandma Sandy to try getting some air plants into my houseplant collection. Originally, I was thinking of using these in fairy gardens, and I might still do that. I kept one of the plant tags because I really have such a small amount of knowledge when it comes to houseplants that I need all the help I can get. So I have these little houseplants growing in a seashell, and every few weeks I take them out and soak them in some water for 15 minutes to 1 hour, which is probably too long, but sometimes it just happens. I have 3 of them here, and let me know in the comment section if you think I killed this one. I think I might have because it feels a little crispy. It's always been a little bit off in color, but it's feeling crispy. Actually, I think it is dead, but that's okay. I still have 3 living ones, I think. This one has a little bit of brown, but there's definitely green on it. So I'm gonna keep it anyways because I do like dried plants or flowers or foliage. So we're gonna keep it, but pretty sure it's not alive anymore. It's entered the world of plant heaven. Here we have one of my larger houseplants, and correct me if I'm wrong on the name. I'm terrible with houseplant names. I think it's some kind of Dracaena. I was attracted to this houseplant originally because it has such a palm tree vibe, and I love palm trees. This plant is pretty low maintenance. I do see it's got some browning leaves. I probably need to give it more water. It's only grown the smallest amount since I got it about, I'm gonna say it's been 2 years maybe since I've had it, but that's okay. It's surviving, and that's a huge deal in my house because Most of my plants that I've had over the years end up in the plant graveyard. They don't end up staying that long in this house. Here, Mr. Zipper is investigating my plants. Don't ask me why. He's not typically interested in my houseplants at all. Favorite plants, probably in my whole collection. And these are my rubber trees, or rubber plants. I think they're called rubber trees. My favorite thing about rubber trees is the texture of the leaves. That smooth, glossy texture is just so lovely. I think there's a better word for it, but I just love the smooth texture of these leaves. Back to my rubber plants. So they have actually grown quite a lot since I got them. I've had them about 2 years, maybe 3 years now. It's been a bit of time. I sort of lost track. And this rubber plant is one of my absolute favorite plants. The variegation is so beautiful. It's got shades of pink, yellow, green, different shades of green. It is absolutely gorgeous. By far my favorite plant, and if it ever enters the plant graveyard, I will be very disappointed because these really are my favorite plants. I have other plants, but nothing compares to these rubber plants, and I'm so grateful that they're so healthy. I've only repotted these once, and they're doing amazing. For plants to be successful in this house, they have to be survivors, because I am an absolute brown thumb plant parent when it comes to indoor plants. I'm pretty good with outside plants, but inside I have very little skills, knowledge, or even motivation sometimes to take good care of my houseplants. I love them, but they need to be able to survive on their own. So the ones I have been here for a good amount of time, and they know how to survive. So here we are on the opposite side of our living room now, and what you are looking at is my one and only coffee tree. Originally, when I bought this coffee tree, it had, I want to say, 5 coffee trees in the pot. Whoops. And I tried to transplant them and, create 5 separate plants from it, but only one survived. But that's okay, I really only need one. This plant has never flowered or produced coffee beans, but I'm okay with that because I don't actually drink coffee, and I only like this plant because of the beautiful glossy leaves, and the shade of green is really gorgeous. I have a thing for glossy plant leaves, and this plant really does it for me. On a side note, it appears to have some kind of issue going on. This is what a couple leaves look like, and it's lost a couple. Overall, it's pretty healthy. So let me know if you think I might be overwatering this plant, if it needs a little more nutrition, or what you think might be going on with the leaf situation, because I do want to keep this plant. I hope it's not going to enter the graveyard like some others have. So let me know in the comments if you think it needs some special care. And beside my coffee tree are my Boston ferns. These guys are doing okay. They do have some beautiful new growth on them. I gave them a little rehab this past summer, so they weren't looking great at all. But if you see in the back, this Boston fern is looking even better than the other one. I had one big clump and I divided it into 2. So I think they're both doing pretty well, actually, considering everything they've been through. I will link my first houseplant video, or one of the firsts, in the description so you can take a look at what it looked like previously. Here is my tallest and most prestigious houseplant in my whole collection. This is the houseplant that actually got me started on all houseplants. It was a plant I got for free on Facebook Marketplace. I got it from an elderly lady who is the most generous gardener out there for outdoor plants, and she has indoor plants too. And she told me when she gave me this plant that it is 30 years old, and that was a few years ago, and that her best advice was to repot it immediately. So that was what I did. When I brought it home, I had zero houseplant knowledge, didn't research houseplants, found out that I believe this is a Dracaena. She didn't tell me what it was called. She just said it was a nice plant. I researched it and I believe it's some kind of Dracaena. I learned that later on. And I repotted it having no knowledge of Dracaenas or any of that stuff. I just picked a houseplant mix I thought would work, got a much bigger pot and potted it up. And I have to say, it's been one of the most successful houseplants I've had on my houseplant journey. This little man wants to participate in my plant tour by bringing me a giraffe to play with. He thinks that he can somehow participate with a giraffe. Next in my plant collection, we have my pothos. Here we have, it is climbing up I'm not going to call it a moss pole. I think this is actually some kind of coconut or something like that. I don't remember what it's called. I bought it on Amazon a long time ago. And it is starting to make its way around the thermostat. I probably could give it another pole to climb on, and maybe I should. Maybe I should see if it'll reach the ceiling. I don't know if that's a good idea. Let me know what you think I should do in the comments. Should I give this pothos something to climb on, see if it'll reach the ceiling? Or just let it be? It is trailing too, and I'm not gonna lie, I often forget to water it, and you can probably tell. Actually, it doesn't look that bad. It is still getting new leaves, and the leaves don't look that dehydrated, although they feel a little bit flimsy, so maybe it does need water. And it lives beside the banana basket and this plant. Now this plant is sad. This is an African mask, and I did not buy this plant. I eyed these plants at Canadian Tire for a long time because I love them. But I knew they were difficult to look after. Here's a better look at my African mask plant. You can see this is one of the original healthy looking leaves. And I'm calling it an African mask because I think it is, but it says on the plant tag, this is what it looks like. Alocasia, pink dragon. I'm quite confident that is an African mask plant. It likes bright, indirect light. Keep the soil slightly moist, feed every 2 weeks. Prefers 18 to 24 degrees Celsius. Well, I have not fertilized this plant, so that might be an issue. And this is what the other leaf looks like. It actually had more and it had newer leaves, but it's not getting really many newer leaves anymore, and something happened here. Probably shouldn't have had it on the fireplace a while ago. That was probably a really bad idea, but it's not there anymore. It is in a very cute pot. It says "You Grow Grow," and this was a gift from one of my recent nursing students who I preceptor in my workplace. Sadie, if you happen to watch this, I am sorry that I didn't take better care of your plant. I tried and I'm still trying, but I'm not the most knowledgeable with this type of plant. I will keep trying and give it some nutrition, and maybe we can get it a little bit of TLC and rehab. Here is my main collection of houseplants, probably what I am most proud of, and this is my cacti collection. I have quite a few cacti in my collection. We're going to start on the outside of the fireplace mantle and work our way in. Here we have a dragon fruit cacti. I bought this about a year ago on Facebook Marketplace. I actually got 2 of them and a seedling, and they're pretty happy. I took them outside in the summertime and they did get a little bit of scorch on them. But overall, they have lots of new growth and these air roots, which I didn't know cacti got those, but apparently that is a thing. So they're doing very well in my house and I'm very happy to have them. I hope one day in the distant future they give me some dragon fruit. That would be super cool. Here is the other dragon fruit cacti in my collection. This one got more scorch on it. It was in one of my fairy gardens outside, and I mean, it's still alive and doing well, but definitely took the elements a little harder than the other one. And beside it, we have a prickly pear cacti. This has done exceptionally well for me. This cactus is a true survivor. When I brought it home from Canadian Tire, I had an accident. It basically got decapitated in my car, and you can see the scar from it here. That's where it got decapitated. It was one plant or one piece of pod, panel, I can't remember the word right now. I didn't have any of these additional growths on them. And it broke off, literally not even in half, but it was a disaster. And I asked what to do on a Facebook houseplant group, and the lovely people told me to root it, put it in cacti soil, don't water it for 1 month. I followed the directions and 100% I had success. This is what resulted, and I got a second plant from it. This is my second prickly pear cacti that came from that first casualty. And it's massive, considering it was smaller than this section of the cactus when it was absolutely tiny when it was stuck in the soil. And it's huge now. Although I was devastated when my cacti became decapitated, in the end, it worked out in my favor, and I'm actually pretty happy that the decapitation happened because it resulted in a great houseplant. Next in my cacti collection, I am so excited to show you my Christmas cactus. This is the only cactus I have ever owned that is about to flower. It's got these fuchsia flower buds on it. And I'm so excited to see what they look like when they open. I truly hope I'm not allergic to them because there aren't a lot of flowers that I'm not allergic to. Some are much worse than others. So I'm hoping it's a very low pollen or no pollen flower and doesn't have much fragrance. I'm crossing my fingers. I haven't researched it. I'm just hoping for the best, that I'm not going to be sorry when this flower blooms. Next is one of my grafted cacti. I have no idea what varieties they are, but I absolutely love this cactus. When I started getting into cacti, one thing that is one of the requirements for me is to have a soft cactus. I don't like to get prickled easily, so I can touch this cactus quite a bit and I won't get poked. So that makes me very happy. It's very soft to touch actually. And down here, I don't know if that's a true cacti, but I can touch it with my fingers and it's smooth. It has the tiniest thorns along the corners of the cacti, if you want to call it that, the edges of the cacti, but the thorns are only there. There are no other thorns. So it's actually a pretty cool cacti. I quite appreciate this grafted cactus. And next we have a cacti that is unknown to me. I do not know the variety. I bought this a year, maybe 2 years ago on Facebook Marketplace. I got a couple cacti for my birthday, this one and the one beside it. And they never told me what this was called, so I still don't know the name of it, but it's grown really well. And it's kind of deceiving because it looks like a soft cacti and I can touch it, but if I get too intimate with this cactus, I have been pricked by it. It's a little bit deceiving on how these thorns look. They look innocent. They look like you could really give them a good rub, but the reality is you might get poked, and the thorns are so tiny they'll be difficult to take out of your finger. So it's not really the best choice if you have one of these to touch the cacti and feel the softness. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Next up, we have another soft cacti, relatively speaking. And this one, if I'm not mistaken, I was told the name, and it's supposed to be a snow cactus, which I think is very cool. It is soft. I am not getting pricked when I am touching this cactus, which is very favorable to me. And I just love it. It's done pretty well in my collection. It's been repotted once, and it's living its best life on the fireplace. Moving into this corner, we have my most recent cacti purchase. This one here. I, once again, do not know the name of this cactus, but it's pretty cool. You can see the thorns if I get a little closer, but the main body of the cacti is very, very smooth. It's nice, and I don't want to call it silky, but you could almost call it a silky cactus. The thorns don't bother me, and they're very easy to see, so you can just avoid them if you happen to be touching your cacti. Quite a nice specimen to have. And this tiny little guy here, see if I can zoom in. This is a seedling of my dragon fruit cacti. I got it for free from the fellow who sold me the full-size dragon fruit cacti. So that was a lovely gesture. And beside it, we have what I believe is called a crested cactus. This was another fairly recent cactus I got this past summer. And once again, it's really easy to touch this cactus without getting hurt, which is one of my favorite things about cacti. They are all so unique, and I love to be able to touch I don't want to call them leaves, they're not called leaves, but touch the plant without getting hurt. Very important. And a beautiful cacti in my collection is this grafted cactus. It was outside on our patio table all summer, and it did amazing. There is so much new growth on it at the top. Once again, probably two very different varieties. Ooh, it does have prickly thorns on the edges, but that's okay. Smooth in the middle. And the grafted part is beautiful. I'm not sure if this is called a coral cacti. I feel like it might be. I might have just made that up, but I think it might be called a coral cacti. And it's absolutely gorgeous. That purple I'm all about the purple. Purple's my favorite color, so it's not a true purple, but it's got purple vibes, and that's what I care about. Behind it, we have two snake plants, which have made an appearance in a recent fairy garden video. Far away view of the fireplace houseplants. Moving into our little hallway here, we have this little decorative shelf where I have another collection of snake plants. I do not know the names. I think this might be a bird's nest snake plant, possibly this one as well. And then that one just is some variegated snake plant. And moving into one of the bathrooms, we have just one plant in here. This is another variegated snake plant, different color variation. And this lovely plant gets a little bit of lighting from the skylight above. It's not in total darkness in here. Before we get into the next plant on the tour, I thought I would stop and give you a quick little story time about what got me interested in houseplants to begin with. For most of my life, I had zero interest in houseplants. I have always loved gardening outside for many, many years, but never had any interest in houseplants. But fast forward to, I'm gonna say 2017, 2018. On Vancouver Island, we saw some of the worst wildfires we have ever seen. And we also had smoke from nearby wildfires in Washington and in the interior of British Columbia. And if you haven't experienced wildfire smoke, you probably don't understand what I'm talking about, but the air quality outside becomes very poor when there's wildfire smoke, and it's advised most of the time not to spend much time outside. That doesn't work for somebody who loves gardening. Smoke is one of my most significant allergies. I take 2 allergy medications every day in my life to make myself have normal breathing so that I can breathe well and not look like I'm sick all the time. So when the wildfires were growing wild in the wilderness and bringing all the smoke into our city, I did not do well with that. I had to be inside. I couldn't be outside for very long, like 20 minutes was probably my maximum. So I couldn't garden. I couldn't do things I wanted to do, like even going for long walks outside in the summertime. I couldn't do any of that. So I decided I needed to bring nature into my home. And that is what got me started on houseplants. And let me tell you, that year that I had to stay in the house, it was actually more than 1 year, but one particularly bad year for wildfires, I got really into houseplants. I was researching how to improve air quality in your home. And although I know there isn't a ton of scientific research, NASA has a study that kind of disproves, but there is some research saying that snake plants, as well as some other varieties of houseplants, are really good with promoting good air quality in your home. And I went crazy with the plants. I currently have about 40 houseplants, and at the peak of my houseplant collection, I want to say I had like 60 or 70, which really isn't that many compared to many plant YouTubers, but for me, it was a lot. And really, it was survival of the fittest because I knew nothing about houseplants. I just wanted clean air. So I loaded up the house with houseplants, and that's how it started. I do realize that you need a ton of houseplants to promote really good air quality, like hundreds, if not thousands, but I'll take any improvement I can get, any little bit of extra oxygen. It's got to be good for the respiratory system, so I'm all for it. I don't think there's any harm in having lots of houseplants in your home. Next on the agenda, we have some cacti and succulents. These are ones that were in fairy gardens outside in the summertime. They got a little mutilated and cut up, and I decided to save them just by putting them in some cacti mix and just letting them be out of direct light. I've only given them water a couple of times and a very, very small amount of water. They've been in here for, I want to say, 2 to 3 months. The only thing I do is give them the tiniest bit of spray from a water spray bottle, like once a month, maybe. And they seem to be doing all right. They have new growth on them, so I am optimistic that they're going to be just fine and grow into some beautiful plants again. Here we are in our tiny little bathroom. This one does have a window to the exterior, which most of the time I leave it open a wee crack for good ventilation. And this is the one and only houseplant in here. I'll give you a better look I believe this is a snake plant. I want to call it a spearhead. It's probably not called a spearhead snake plant. I can't remember what it's called, but it's doing really well. I think it may need to be repotted pretty soon. Let's see what the roots look like. So this is what the roots look like. I'm thinking it's due for repotting. The reality is I've never repotted it. I've had that one. I've had this snake plant for, I'm gonna say 3 years, maybe 4 years. It's never been repotted. It probably is time. That is my first ever houseplant tour. I'm still thinking of adding a few more houseplants to my collection, just a few. I know I don't need hordes of them, but every now and then I get a desire to add a couple more plants to the collection. So if I do, I will probably give you an update in the future. But for now, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you very soon in another video. Have a good day.